Earth Wars, Chapter 7, Return of the Obi-Wan. During the Clinton War in America in the mid-90s, Obi-Wan Coyote led his band of rebel listeners to defeat gun control in the free and independent state of Florida. While serving the people of Boston, Obi-Wan Coyote was snatched from the airwaves by the Clintonian Empire and has been in seclusion until Princess Pelosi and Hussein the Drain took over the Imperial Senate and came to power, while the economy was tanking from the Fannie and Freddie trillion-dollar theft. Hussein the Drain and the Princess Pelosi have captured the Tidy Bowl Man and his ship and are planning to sink the entire economic system of the planet Earth.
Good afternoon. This is I am he, thee is he. This is Mike Wiley. Originally, I was going to have a little fun with this show, and then I heard this woman standing in front of the Supreme Court being full of shit. And so I thought, wait a minute here, I can't let this stand. So I'm going to go ahead and take my turn in front of the Supreme Court by presenting to her, even though she's not here, questions that she would have to answer if I was there in order to support the bullshit she was throwing. I don't know about you, but I am so sick and tired of Democrats lying. Now, you have to understand something. I had done pro se law for, let's say, 23 years. I basically retired after my final victory against Allstate Insurance, got my check and said sayonara to law, and then decided to make sure nobody else pissed me off or committed crimes against me, so I wouldn't get involved in beating the piss out of them in court. When you've been in court, I may have more experience actually in trials than a lot of other attorneys, but because I was in quite a few of them in 4 different states, because I don't put up with people's bullshit. And I know how to present cases, and I know what to say and do, and I've read the laws, and yes, I have a year of law school. Found out that I couldn't pass a law test to save my life because of my reading disorder. Then found out later that I could have taken it over and been given more time because of it. But at that point, I was just saying, hey, you know, I learned tort law, I learned criminal law, and I learned contract law. And really, those 3 are probably 97% of whatever I'm going to use. I had already did marriage law. I already covered my own divorce in 2000, and it was actually that case that got me into deciding that I should go to become a lawyer, because I did really well. I was surprised. I didn't know how well I would do, but it was my first time in court. So actually, I've only been doing pro se law officially for like 23 years, but I had done a bit of it before the year 2000, but nothing to really write home about. One thing I have found is that lawyers are liars. Not all of them. A good chunk of them are when they're representing the Democratic Party in the House or the Senate or in the White House. I mean, those people lie every damn day. And today I'm going to send you some information. Actually, I'm going to provide to you some witnesses who are going to present criminal activity of the Democratic Party, where they acknowledge it would be a crime if it was in a real court of law, but because it's in the government and it's run by the Democrats, what are you going to do? Okay, we know they're crooks, we know they're liars, we know they steal as much money from us as they can, but until they go away, we're screwed. And so I'm kicking forward even more so the reason for separation. And I am going to put together my encyclopedia of Democrat crime. I've got to have probably 20 videos, maybe even 25 videos when I'm done, because I have 2-hour videos that I'm going to cut up into sections to cover specific crimes that have been committed. Most of what I've been covering has been since the Manchurians took over the Democratic Party in 1992. But their activity, was very evident when they assassinated Lincoln, 1865, and allowed a Vice President Johnson to, who was a Democrat, become the president, and he began to screw black people left and right, pulled back their land grants and their, the 40 acres and a mule. They pulled that back. He was pulling back Reconstruction, and he ended up getting impeached for that. But he survived the impeachment by one vote. But the Democrats have basically been criminals since 1865 or 1861. Let's put it this way: the day they gave up and decided to leave the country, I think they've never returned mentally, and they've just waited their time to do what they need to do, and they've been doing it. In 1963, they shot and killed JFK. One major reason was that JFK was not going to commit to the Vietnam War, and Lyndon Baines Johnson had his eye on making millions. Lyndon Baines Johnson, I think, died with like $110 million in the bank. And then, of course, Lyndon Baines Johnson found out that he was not going to be on the ticket in '64. And so the only way Johnson was going to become president was if he got rid of Kennedy, so he had Kennedy killed. You don't believe that? Check it out yourself. So we've had 2 Democratic vice presidents named Johnson who became president because the president, while they were VP, got assassinated. What a coincidence, huh? Then we had the deal with Nixon, and I've already done that show on Watergate. I'm going to be cutting that into a specific video for Watergate and what they did. And basically, to find out, here's how you find out what crimes the Democrats have committed. This is how you can figure out about the election fraud, about just about everything they do. Okay, it's called mens rea, and that's the key word for today, mens rea, which is in the mind. What was the thought in your mind? If you committed a crime, what was in your thoughts? What were you thinking? What led to the intent of you to do that crime? That's a key issue when it comes to law, and that's how you can figure out a lot of these Democrat crimes and why they do them, is because of the intent. And we're going to get into that because the person who's going to be standing in front of the Supreme Court acts as if Nancy Pelosi and Democrats had nothing to do with whatever they did, even though there's too much evidence to say not. You see, these people have learned that if they're not going to be on the stand, okay, usually when you first go to court, you're standing and you're swearing an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and you're figuring, okay, yeah, if I'm put on the stand, I've already said I. But if you're not on the stand, you can lie all you want. You can make twists and turns when you ask stupid questions. I mean, I've seen it all. I had my last court case. They were going to put a professional witness on who signed an affidavit that said the temperature did not drop below freezing at any time during the night. Not once. And that was true. The only problem was that 6:51 a.m., the temperature did drop to 32 degrees, and that caused the ice that I stepped on and slipped and snapped my quadricep muscle, okay? And I nailed them on that at a summary judgment hearing. Matter of fact, it was that issue that kept the summary judgment by going to my direction and not to my opponent's direction. And then we just had to wait until the defendant died, because he was not going to settle no matter what. And he died November of 2022, and 3 months later we had a settlement, and that was the end of that. So lawyers lie. They distort stuff all the time. I'm sorry, but all the time. And I'm not going to go through and recount all the ones, but I can, off the top of my head, name 3 court cases. One was against Allstate, one was against the HOA, and I'll come up. I just had the other one in my mind 3 seconds ago. My mind doesn't carry 700 billion megabytes of data anymore. I'm down to about 5 megabytes. But I can mention 3 or 4 cases that these people came out and made a distorted claim, which I ended up shoving up their ass later on. And that's one of the things. When your opponent says something that's wrong, you have to make sure you shove it up their ass, because otherwise the judge is going to say, oh, well, you didn't say anything about it, so what they said must have been true. So you have to challenge what they say, and that's what we're doing today. We're going to challenge what the solicitor, whatever her name is, stated. We're actually going to play a little bit of her voice as she spoke, and that's what kind of set me off, because I just happened to be listening to it, and when I heard her first 2 lines, bam, I went nuts, because she's carrying along the lie, okay? And the lie is very clearly, who wanted the election to be stolen? Well, the Democrats did. That's why they stole the election. Well, if you're going to steal the election, you have to make sure it stays stolen. And the hearings of the joint session on January 6th would have had hearings on 6 states that we know violated the law, because the Democrats try to get away with a quick one. It's noticed and written in the congressional record. Just pull up the congressional record for January 6th, and you're going to find evidence about what Nancy Pelosi was up to. For instance, she made sure that the floor wasn't covered by everybody. She wanted to parcel up people into the gallery, and because of supposed COVID shit. All right. But she knew that she didn't want enough people on the floor to be able to challenge something. Okay. She was creating a scenario that was illegal in a sense. And it also didn't allow a quorum. So none of that stuff on January 6th actually occurred. So I know if somebody goes ahead and challenges it, it will, because we already had a federal judge throw out one of the $1.7 trillion deals, because they were collecting votes from people, but the law says, the Constitution says, you have to have a quorum on the floor, and they didn't. So that judge threw that shit out. Democrats only follow the laws when it suits them, and if it doesn't suit them, they violate the law all the time. I'm so sick of these people. So I'm going on a banshee run. That's what's going to happen. So let me tell you what I've got here. Okay, we covered that. Okay, so in 1992, the Manchurians you need to understand the history of China. So you understand why I refer to the communists as Manchurians, because the Manchurian dynasty, or actually the Manchu dynasty, likes to be in control of everything. And so we've had to deal with that. Now, I have stuff that I probably won't get into unless it just works that way. But I'm going to open up with this statement, and then I'm going to start presenting stuff to you. This is going to be a quick show. I've already got 20 minutes of video, 10 of which is with David Nunes, which is very important, because he sits there and he points out right next to that lying scumbag Schiff all the crap the Democrats pulled for these fake impeachments. All these people should be in jail. All of them. All the Democrats should be in jail. Okay? But I guess it's not a crime for them to violate the Constitution, and it's not a crime for them to violate their oath of office. And this is why the only way we can get our country back is to eliminate the federal government for now, pull it out, get rid of it, have the states pull back all their people, and then let the states, there's about 25 red states. You can tell because they're the ones that were sending troops to Texas so they can go ahead and protect their borders from the 15 million future Democratic voters that are getting registered as we speak. There, once again, I'm gonna stop for a second, because the number 15 million is quite interesting. I've shown this before, but you may not have seen the show before, but here's a schedule. Okay, and what the schedule tells you is that for some reason, in 1996, there was 128 million registered voters in the United States. And then 4 years later, there was 130 million. So it went up by about 2 million. That's not bad. In 2004, it jumped 13 million people to 2004. Now, what was 2004? 2004 was an election year. And for some reason, the registrations go up. Now, either A, they go up because people decide, yeah, I'm going to vote, so I'm going to register. Or the Democrats are saying, yeah, we're going to have a presidential election, Senate election. We need to stuff some votes away to steal the election. So from 2004 to 2008, it only went up 4 million. But from 2008 to 2010, it dropped 9 million. 9 million registered voters came off the rolls. But in time for 2012, it jumped up 15 million. 2014 to 2016, it went up 15 million. 2018 to 2020, it went up 15 million. Okay, 3 times 15 million. It's a scam. That's how you determine fraud and criminal activity, because they provide you with information, and all you have to do is find the information that doesn't make sense, and then you can arrive at something. So let's get moving on this. The Democrats' road to the coup d'etat. The Democrats plan to take over the United States with a bloodless coup and terminate the constitutional republic and become a benevolent state of the Manchurian Empire under the Chinese Communist Party rule, begun in 2004. What was 2004? With the election fraud, the Illinois Senate race putting Barack Obama on course for the election takeover of 2008 to 2014, with the Afghanistan transfer to China and the Ukrainian invasion to open up the vast Ukrainian coal mines and earth minerals to serve China's needs. Okay, if you haven't figured it out, China's putting their hands everywhere around the world where there are natural resources. The Chinese are involved in Venezuela. Why? They have more oil than anybody else. The Chinese are involved with Afghanistan now, thanks to Mr. Obama. Why? Because they have all these minerals that the Russians tried to get back when they first invaded. The United States wasn't really interested in minerals when they were in Afghanistan. They were more on the drug trade because there were more people involved with that were tied to the Mexican cartels, probably just like the Chinese are now. Could have been the Chinese running that operation. Okay. The Ukraine issue, I believe, has to do with Ukraine's coal. Now, China has 35 years of coal reserves. 35 years. That's like nothing to them. Ukraine has 638 years of reserve. Now, it's a smaller country, but they do produce a lot of coal. They're the 6th largest producer in the planet. China is 4th. Adding that 6, it's like, let's get that country. But the Chinese can't go in and maneuver around because they don't look like Ukrainians or Europeans. Okay. Plus, the Chinese are trying to get Putin to believe that they want to be friends and buddies. I don't think that's the case. I think Putin understands what they're doing. And what they've got is they've got the 2 largest white Christian majority countries with plenty of oil and resources, the United States and Russia, hopefully fighting each other. That would be the ultimate Chinese goal. I believe Putin recognizes this. I really do. Okay. He may be a son of a bitch from time to time, but he's not stupid. Okay. I'm just saying. And I believe that when Trump gets in, if Trump gets in, that this whole Russia issue is going to be gone. Okay. China plans for world domination with their innocent Belt and Road program could have a stumbling block known as Trump. When Trump's descent down the escalator in 2015, the call for the Wuhan virus was made. The fake Clinton FBI Russia hoax and then the 2 years of the fake Miller investigations, followed by a fake impeachment over a phone conversation that actually never took place the way Adam Schiff wanted it presented to the American people. You're going to hear Devin Nunes point that out again. Before the fake impeachment, Democrat operatives of Perkins Coie, specifically Mark Elias, who was manager of Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign and the Russia hoax, were beginning to lay down a fake process of changing election rules to allow for massive election fraud. This is why January 6th happened the way it did, because 6 U.S. Republican representatives and 6 Republican senators had signed complaints that were to be reviewed in this joint session. And the idea was to throw 3 of the states out, at least Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, who had Republican legislators, but did not have them make any changes to the election laws, which is the Constitution. And what they did was they set up so the governors of the Secretary of States of those states, or the Attorney Generals, made the changes illegally. Those 3 states would have been thrown out. There wouldn't have been a majority. That caused the vote to go to House of Representatives. Trump would have won by state 27-21. Nancy Pelosi knew this, and that's why she created this whole January 6th bullshit. Everyone knows what she was up to. I've covered it so you can believe. I mean, I'd probably have a 3-hour show just putting all the stuff together that I've done over these times. So before the fake impeachment, Democrat operatives of Perkins Coie, specifically Mark Elias, were beginning to lay down a fake process for changing election rules to allow for massive election fraud. This, of course, was a crime yet to be investigated. The idea is that since the Democrats are controlled with the media will do all the lying for them, then they can do something and get away with it because the media is not going to point it out to you. The media is only going to point out to you the things Donald Trump hasn't done. They won't point out the things that Democrats have done. And that's one of the problems. This country doesn't have its own media. Therefore, it needs to separate not only from the Democrats, but from the media itself. That's got to be done. Otherwise, we go nowhere as a country. Nowhere. Things will just keep continuing the way it is now. The Manchurian murder of 1.3 million Americans, 1 million of whom were Social Security members, provided a gain of $254 billion in Social Security funding to be used by the Democrats to entice 15 million illegals to be brought into the country and added to voter registrations to ensure another fake election. Don't believe me? Check it out. They're already registered now. They're sending them all down there. That's why they gave them money and cards. So, you want to get your card refilled? Just go in and sign up. Yep. So you voter register. We'll get yourself a driver's license, even though you don't know how to drive a car, to ensure another fake election in 2024 to cover the known loss of black support for Joe Biden. Now, I mentioned here how the election fraud was committed. Okay, let me ask you this question. You've heard the people at Chick-fil-A and you've heard the black people complain about Biden, and they're saying things about what he did before 2016 as the senator, as a VP, against black people, criminal laws, jailing, everything. They don't like him because of that. Everybody knew that. The Democrats knew that. And the Democrats knew that he was not going to get 91% of the black vote like Hillary Clinton did in 2016. He was probably going to get about, I'm going to say 82%. And that 82% was the difference that would have given Trump the landslide. However, they had to make up for that lost 10%, 8%, 9% in votes. And so that was the purpose for the mail-in fraud ballots. And that's why it was all done within the communities of Fulton County. They were done in Philadelphia, done in Detroit, and done in Wisconsin. Okay, that was the scam. Okay, everybody knows it. It's so obvious that somebody who's dead can figure it out just by breathing for 5 seconds. So then ask the question, when did black Democrats know they were not going to vote for the racist Biden? Last week or last election in 2020? When 15 million fake black votes were created to replace the share Biden was not going to get. Okay, I'm telling you, all this stuff is based on logic. Okay, when you hear a woman explaining exactly why she would never vote for Biden and points out three major things he did as a racist, that they believe him to be a racist, and that they weren't going to vote for him then, that means they weren't going to vote for him in 2020. So how did he get 92% of the black vote when he should have only gotten about 82%? What was that 10% extra, huh? Where'd that come from? All right, so first things first, we're going to play you Devin Nunes. He was the ranking member in the impeachment hearings, and you're going to hear from him for about 9 to 10 minutes. Pay close attention because he covers it all. He covers all what the Democrats did. So you're going to see that. And then I don't think there's any need for explanation. It's just a point of fact that I have to give you because when I go after this other woman who made these stupid comments in front of the Supreme Court, you'll understand what I'm saying. So here's Devin Nunes now.
In a July open hearing of this committee following publication of the Mueller report, the Democrats engaged in a last-ditch effort to convince the American people that President Trump is a Russian agent. That hearing was the pivotal finale of a 3-year-long operation by the Democrats, the corrupt media, and partisan bureaucrats to overturn the results of the 2016 election. After the spectacular implosion of their Russia hoax on July 24th, in which they spent years denouncing any Republican who ever shook hands with a Russian, on July 25th, they turned on a dime and now claim the real malfeasance is Republicans' dealings with Ukraine. In the blink of an eye, we're asked to simply forget about Democrats on this committee, falsely claiming they had more than circumstantial evidence of collusion between President Trump and Russians. We should forget about them reading fabrications of Trump-Russia collusion from the Steele dossier into the congressional record. We should also forget about them trying to obtain nude pictures of Trump from Russian pranksters who pretended to be Ukrainian officials. We should forget about them leaking a false story to CNN while he was still testifying to our committee claiming that Donald Trump Jr. was colluding with WikiLeaks. And forget about countless other deceptions, large and small, that make them the last people on earth with the credibility to hurl more preposterous accusations at their political opponents. And yet now, here we are. We're supposed to take these people at face value when they trot out a new batch of allegations. But anyone familiar with the Democrats' scorched earth war against President Trump would not be surprised to see all the typical signs that this is a carefully orchestrated media smear campaign. For example, after vowing publicly that impeachment requires bipartisan support, Democrats are pushing impeachment forward without the backing of a single Republican. The witnesses deemed suitable for television by the Democrats were put through a closed-door audition process in a cult-like atmosphere in the basement of the Capitol, where Democrats conducted secret depositions, released a flood of misleading and one-sided leaks, and later selectively released transcripts in a highly staged manner. Violating their own guidelines, Democrats repeatedly redacted from the transcripts the name of Alexander Chalupa, a contractor for the Democratic National Committee who worked with Ukrainian officials to collect dirt on the Trump campaign, which she provided to the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign. The Democrats rejected most of the Republicans' witness requests, resulting in a horrifically one-sided process where the crucial witnesses are denied a platform if their testimony does not support the Democrats' absurd accusations. Notably, they are trying to impeach the president for inquiring about Hunter Biden's activities. Yet they refuse our request to hear from Biden himself. The whistleblower was acknowledged to have a bias against President Trump, and his attorney touted a coup against the president and called for his impeachment just weeks after the election. At a prior hearing, Democrats on this committee read out a purely fictitious rendition of the president's phone call with President Zelensky. They clearly found the real conversation to be insufficient for their impeachment narrative, so they just made up a new one. And most egregiously, the staff of the Democrats on this committee had direct discussions with the whistleblower before his or her complaint was submitted to the Inspector General. Republicans can't get a full account of these contacts because Democrats broke their promise to have the whistleblower testify to this committee. Democrat members hid these contacts from Republicans and then lied about them to the American people on national television. I've noted before, the Democrats have a long habit of accusing Republicans of offenses they themselves are committing. Let's recall, for years they accused the Trump campaign of colluding with Russia when they themselves were colluding with Russia by funding and spreading the Steele dossier, which relied on Russian sources. And now they accuse President Trump of malfeasance in Ukraine when they themselves are culpable. The Democrats cooperated in Ukrainian election meddling, and they defend Hunter Biden's securing of a lavishly paid position with a corrupt Ukrainian company, all while his father served as vice president. Despite this hypocrisy, the Democrats are advancing their impeachment sham. But we should not hold any hearings at all until we get answers to three crucial questions the Democrats are determined to avoid asking. First, what is the full extent of the Democrats' prior coordination with the whistleblower? And who else did the whistleblower coordinate this effort with? Second, what is the full extent of Ukraine's election meddling against the Trump campaign? And third, why did Burisma hire Hunter Biden? And what did he do for them? And did his position affect any U.S. government actions under the Obama administration? These questions will remain outstanding because Republicans were denied the right to call witnesses that know these answers. What we will witness today is a televised theatrical performance staged by the Democrats. Ambassador Taylor and Mr. Kent, I'd like to welcome you here. I'd like to congratulate you for passing the Democrat Star Chamber auditions held for the last weeks in the basement of the Capitol. It seems you agreed, witting or unwittingly, to participate in a drama. But the main performance, the Russia hoax, has ended, and you've been cast in the low-rent Ukrainian sequel. I'll conclude by noting the immense damage the politicized bureaucracy has done to Americans' faith in government. Though executive branch employees are charged with implementing the policies set by our president, who is elected and responsible to the American people, elements of the civil service have decided that they, not the president, are really in charge. Thus, as we'll learn in these hearings, after expressing skepticism of foreign aid and concern about foreign corruption on the campaign trail, President Trump outraged the bureaucracy by acting skeptically about foreign aid and expressing concerns about foreign corruption. Officials' alarm at the president's actions was typically based on second-hand, third-hand, and even fourth-hand rumors and innuendo. They believed it was an outrage for the president to fire an ambassador, even though the president has full authority to retain or remove diplomats for any reason at any time. Officials showed the surprising lack of interest in the indications of Ukrainian election meddling that deeply concerned the president at whose pleasure they serve. Despite all their dissatisfaction with President Trump's Ukraine policy, the president approved the supply of weapons to Ukraine, unlike the previous administration, which provided blankets as defense against invading Russians. By undermining the president, who they are supposed to be serving, the elements of the FBI, the Department of Justice, and now the State Department have lost the confidence of millions of Americans who believe that their vote should count for something. It will take years, if not decades, to restore faith in these institutions. This spectacle is doing great damage to our country. It's nothing more than an impeachment process in search of a crime.
Okay. Now, next up is actually what we're going to do is we're going to play a little bit of this woman, the solicitor Clitoris Mentis. She said a violent mob stormed the Capitol and disrupted the peaceful transition of power. There was no peaceful transition of power. Okay, illegal transmission of power is never peaceful. Just because maybe no one's been shot or there wasn't any noise, it was done in silence, it's still a criminal act. As instructed by the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, the first female speaker in American history and the first speaker to commit a coup d'etat against the incumbent presidency of Donald J. Trump. It was a coup d'etat. The coup d'etat began in 5 seconds after he came down that escalator. Bam, the coup d'etat was on. There's so much evidence of it, and we've covered shows on that. All right, those who did commit crimes, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, Vice President Mike Pence, yes, he was an accessory to the fraud, the FBI, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and a host of Democrats to be named in the criminal action to be taken in defense of the free American states. All this comes out with the movement for secession from different states, like New York, Minnesota, Colorado, Oregon, Washington. All these red states that are being run by little blue cities. Million MAGA supporters who came to peacefully protest, which is a First Amendment right. So she goes on to say, many crimes occurred that day.
General Prelogar.
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court. On January 6, 2021, a violent mob stormed the United States Capitol and disrupted the peaceful transition of power. Many crimes occurred that day.
None of which were initiated by Donald Trump, the President of the United States, the million MAGA supporters who came to peacefully protest, which is a First Amendment right. She makes a comment, many crimes occurred that day. But she doesn't say who committed the crimes. She's using a logic pattern to have you believe, oh yeah, it was Trump. Those who did commit crimes were Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, Vice President Mike Pence, the FBI, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and a host of Democrats to be named in the criminal action to be taken in defense of the free American states. The solicitor continues. But in plain English, and I say, why not in plain Mandarin? Aren't you speaking Mandarin but in English? Don't you represent Barack Obama and the Communist Chinese Party standing in front of the Supreme Court today? Isn't that who you really represent? Because those are the people that don't want Donald Trump ever to be in power again. Do you not work directly for Barack Obama, who in turn has been a Manchurian candidate since 2004? And has not the Democratic Party since 1992 become a tool for the Chinese Communist Party by accepting donations from the CCP, beginning with the Clinton crime family? Charlie Tree, come on down. Look up Charlie Tree, T-R-E. He was the guy. Then she goes on to say, the fundamental wrong committed by many of the rioters, including the petitioner, was a deliberate attempt to stop the joint session of Congress and certifying the results of the election.
But in plain English, the fundamental wrong committed by many of the rioters, including petitioner, was a deliberate attempt to stop the joint session of Congress from certifying the results of the election.
This statement she made is totally false. It's totally false. She is merely a mouthpiece doing her part in a massive conspiracy to remove Donald Trump from the presidency when Democrats realized that he would win the 2020 general election, along with 4 Senate races to keep the Republicans in the majority in the Senate and in the House. So, now let's make believe I got to be there while she was saying this, and then I get to speak. May I ask the Solicitor General, Madam, this question? Madam, I believe you know the law, and you know that in order to present evidence of a crime, that evidence must include the mens rea of those who came that day to support Donald Trump and to cheer on the joint session of Congress to review and finalize the 2020 election results, which are clearly stated in the congressional record as being falsified with regard to 6 states who violated the Constitution, Article 1, Section 4, manner of elections. It was known by all that there were 6 complete and signed complaints, with the U.S. Senator supporting the complaint of all 6 violations. So let me ask you this, Madam Solicitor. Who had the mens rea to stop the activity which was going to end in a 27-21 vote for President Trump to retain the presidency? Please tell us who had the mens rea in their mind to stop Donald Trump from retaining the presidency. Not any of his supporters. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you, I've got a video of the second impeachment where the Trump attorney points out the fraud that the Democratic team management of these idiots put through to try to get across, to try to get this fake impeachment across, this second fake impeachment. Because remember, they were all banking on the fact that the 14th Amendment, Section 3, would be able to get rid of Trump, which it didn't. That was just them trying to understand. The Democrats know that 2 and 2 is 4. But they want you to believe that 2 and 2 is 7. And so their media will tell you every day, 2 and 2 is 7. 2 and 2 is 7. 2 and 2 is 7. Okay? These are Nazis. Nazis only get away with shit when they control the media. Was it Donald Trump and his million MAGA army, or was it Nancy Pelosi, who was determined to ensure that 1.3 million dead from the China pandemic and the millions spent on fabricating 15 million fake votes to be placed in the inner city districts of Detroit, Milwaukee, Atlanta, and Philadelphia to ensure that the 8% loss of black vote due to Joe Biden's racist past, well known to black America, would not keep Donald Trump in office? May I point out that showing Joe Biden with 92% of the black vote in 2020 compared to Hillary Clinton's 2016 share of 91% exposes the falsehood of the election. How is it that he got all these votes, yet she did so much better in all these areas than he, but he got the same amount of figure of black vote? None of that makes sense. Also, the hiring of GBI and paying them $5 million for creating 15 million registrations and the corresponding fake mail-in ballots to be distributed where needed at 3 a.m. in the morning cannot be discounted. Okay, we know that that's a deal too. If Trump gets elected president, then he's going to hire a real attorney general. All this shit's going to come out. All this shit is going to come out. Madam Solicitor General, your appearance in front of the Supreme Court and your presentations of known falsehoods now represent another conspirator in the 2020 election fraud. Unless you can explain the following. The intent of the Democratic trial managers to denigrate the truth of the day by purposely corrupting their false presentation of lies. You're going to see that. What was their mens rea when fabricating false evidence? What was in the mind of the Democrat congressmen when they were creating falsehoods and tampering with evidence? What was in their mind? What was their intent? Was it to commit a crime? Absolutely. Are they in jail now? No. What was their mens rea when fabricating false evidence? Madam Solicitor, have you investigated your fellow Manchurian Democrats? Number 2, you claim that the MAGA people were intent on disrupting the joint session. Why would they want that when they were counting on the completion of due process, which includes the right to review? Hence the naming of the rally as Stop the Steal. Did you investigate why Nancy Pelosi limited the amount of people on the floor, forcing the others to stay in the gallery? There's clear evidence in the documented records of the congressional record when that was challenged. Why was it that way? And some guy named Mike Pence went, "Get out of here! Get out of here! Go away!" Did you investigate why Nancy Pelosi limited the amount of people on the floor, forcing the others to stay in the gallery where they could not be counted on to vote for 6 reviews of criminal activity committed by a political party? They did not want the due process to continue. Donald Trump's due process as the incumbent presidency should have been taken care of, and they did. Did you investigate why Nancy Pelosi denied the appearance of 10,000 National Guard who would have been able to prevent any interruption of the proceedings? The fact that you came before the Supreme Court to enforce your criminal act and that of the Democratic Party and the FBI presents the American people a complete loss of constitutional government as prescribed by the Constitution of the United States, which the 1992 Manchurian Democratic Party has violated for 32 years. Okay. I've been talking for half an hour, and we got about 20 minutes of media, so okay. So in a nutshell, I'm giving you some more evidence of what was going on. My next video is going to be on, I'm going to cover the 1994 U.S. Senate race in Florida because I've discovered now why the Democrats came after me and not wanting me to win the election, because that is when they decided that they were going to leave the union, leave the Teamsters, leave labor, and just go for their own Manchurian wealth. Okay, I didn't realize that, but it started hitting me, and I started looking into it, and then I realized that's why they came after me, because I was considered dangerous. Because if I was in the U.S. Senate as a Democrat, pro-union, pro-MAGA, America first, I was America first back then. That must have scared the shit out of them, because all of a sudden, they're down there trying to get rid of me, offered me money to drop out of the race. So that's going to be the next video, and then I'm going to come out with the series. So I hope you have a good day. This is Mike Wiley. I love you.
To doubt the evidence the House managers have put before us. Let me say this clearly. We have reason to believe the House managers manipulated evidence and selectively edited footage. If they did, and this were a court of law, they would face sanctions from the judge. I don't raise this issue lightly. Rather, it is a product of what we have found in just the limited time we have had since we first saw the evidence here with you this week. We have reason to believe that the House managers created false representations of tweets, and the lack of due process means there was no opportunity to review or verify the accuracy. Consider these facts. The House managers, proud of their work on the snap impeachment, staged numerous photo shoots of their preparations.
After this, we're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down to the Capitol. But I think right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong. We have come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully slated. Lawfully slated. I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
And we are going to walk down to the Capitol. They showed you that part. Why are we walking to the Capitol? Well, they cut that off. To cheer on some members of Congress and not others, peacefully and patriotically. The Supreme Court ruled in Brandenburg that there's a very clear standard for incitement. In short, to paraphrase, whether the speech was intended to provoke imminent lawless action, and was it likely to do so. Go to the Capitol and cheer on some members of Congress, but not others. They know it doesn't meet the standard for incitement, so they edited it down.